Alright, here we go. Game number 2 of our round 2 matchup between DT and Kanto. We are on Io this time by Kanto's choice. And we have a garage and electronics colony.
This map is miserable.
Yeah.
Yep, there's like not even half an inch to found on.
Carbon is also pretty miserable. You have 2 pairs of lows that have any sort of adjacency and that one very high. And carbon will always be important.
You could maybe, as a scavenger, it wouldn't diminish, and you could maybe slant drill it.
Maybe. That's definitely an option. On IO you normally have plenty of founding locations with basalt and everything. This
Not
game
today.
there's just nothing. DT managing to not even find something appealing, but it's what you have
So
to
this is
work
a
with.
reasonable scientific location. Scientists can pull resources out of the ground, and that includes ice, and there is, I want to say, 3, maybe 4 ice patches available to DT.
Yeah, the iron and the ice and the aluminum will all work out okay for him. Carbon, I guess, isn't terrible. It's just always a little sad when you don't have the basalt as a scientist on Io. And still make it work, there is the silicon nearby too.
No teleportation on Io, so that's, if you're going to be a scientist, a really important thing to remember.
Also important, when Kanto is going to be shipping this very high aluminum across the map, early fuel should be important. Kanto definitely has an easier path into that. He has all the carbon. And I'm not sure what he's saving these last 2 claims for. I guess he's just...
DT going for that early mutiny, preventing Kanto from getting up even further ahead, but also sparing him some of that fuel debt, so it'll be interesting to see how this works out.
It looks like it's going to work out really well for him if Kanto's response is to build 2 more aluminum mines over there.
Yeah, that's probably not a great move. Kanto can make fuel there. That's probably, other than aluminum, the thing he can expect to be doing with those tiles.
Right, those tiles are far enough away, and this is enough of a setback for Kanto that I think DT is just going to... This is like best case scenario for him, I think.
So DT going into a geotherm,
Geotherm's
which
always,
definitely makes sense.
Yeah, very solid power option on Io that you can't forget about. Unlike nuclear plants, don't have to worry about the uranium or the water. Water usually the bigger problem. In this game, with neither player able to do anything with basalt, uranium will also be an issue, so just having that geothermal power secured will be very helpful. Also the first.
So this is where Kanto is starting to really feel that carbon placement, because he's got an ion collector down. He's got 1 claim where he wants to have an ion collector, but he doesn't have enough carbon for it. He should have a carbon quarry there. I mean, it would be the sensible thing to do, but because there's no adjacency, he just left it empty till he could get the resources together.
Right. He does still have enough of carbon left for his upgrade and stuff. It's just not going to be nice for him long term. And, right, like we were saying, there's just not that much of a reason for these aluminum mines over there to exist. Aluminum already back down to $23. And
yeah.
Problem.
So we actually have a black market item, return a claim, but it's not available. So under some circumstances, I could get behind this, because you buy 1 return a claim, you get 2 claims back. You could get rid of both these aluminum mines and have them be wherever you want. But he's stuck with them. It's going to be all game. It'll be interesting to see if he gets down some nuclear plants on him or what he ends up doing.
I'm honestly just really concerned about a lot of the directions Kanto's chosen to take this game. He also bought a new claim, put that directly onto oxygen, which, first of all, oxygen is $32, second of all, it's nighttime, third of all, there was no adjacency, and fourth of all, condensers just don't produce all that much. It's not a market you need to move into early.
I think that there's times where you do it mostly in free-for-all, and then there's times where you don't necessarily need to do it. In a time like this where my opponent is so far away and has so many better spots to put down their own oxygen, even adjacent to their HQ, I would be thinking there's probably not much urgency in claiming those 2 claims in particular. They'll be there later down the line when I hit level 4, if I hit level 4.
Yep.
So he's fueling his glass. I see the thinking.
Maybe.
This is all for the glass.
It's not worth it, but that's fine.
Gonna hit 4.
Alright, well DT at this point knows that Kanto does not have his geothermal plant gooned. He can very easily just take it.
Yes.
DT also very close to power money at this point.
That would probably be a very effective mutiny.
Looks like DT opted for a claim instead.
Another really good option would have been dynamite, because it would just cost him so much in carbon to repair.
Right, it definitely felt a lot like the right play to me just because DT is that close to the power money and Kanto doesn't have any sort of power source besides that.
Yeah.
Let the bidding begin.
Use DT. Okay, water on top of ice. Not very visible ice, but ice nonetheless.
I think DT's probably right to spend 36,000 on transparent aluminum. I think he's probably wrong to spend 48,000 on transparent aluminum.
I guess the argument for that is that DT doesn't have easy access to glass production. Right now he has this very high silk unclaimed, but in the late game that will diminish to the low. Unless he puts another claim out there, he can't realistically produce that in any reasonable amount. But still, DT was so close to power money, it feels wrong when Kanto is struggling.
Compared to just letting your opponent spend 40,000 when they're already...
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess once...
DT's separating off his water processors from his main HQ, realizing that these EMPs are a problem, and mitigating for that as best he can.
Mm-hmm. Also, Glass Kiln's already taking up most of the ice spots, so just expanding into a little more.
Yes.
I guess it is worth pointing out, I guess DT did go for the claim before, so that's not even really the argument, but being ready with the black market to defend against Kanto mutinying his geotherms was a reason not to get aggressive.
Kanto thinking about adrenaline boosting his patent lab, but doesn't have the goons saved up to actually make use of that.
And still definitely very true that DT would know that there is no goon squad. Because it's still a 3K. No one has bought a goon squad this game.
The patent lab is constructed.
And looks like DT actually going to get the adrenaline boost down on his patent lab first.
Also unprotected. But I think DT probably saw that Kanto picked up that adrenaline boost, knew he had a small window of time where he could get this boost off before Kanto had any aggression available to him. Also knowing
Superconductor is a huge play for DT.
Yeah, that should just keep him where he needs to be the rest of the game.
It's gonna mean that Kanto's just never making money in patent.
Right. Which is probably okay for Kanto. He might not ever expand past the single geotherm.
It's not going to be good for him.
Right, it's a very dangerous move to do that. It opens up the possibility for DT to stop auto-selling power at some point, hack it up, and then Kanto is left in a very bad position. But we'll see how Kanto handles that.
5-5.
Very even game so far. Have to wonder if Kanto thought that the patent lab was gooned before the boost was dropped. Scientific, you can always play weird mind games with your free starting goon. You never know where it goes.
DT has a goon on his patent lab now. Yep.
And that should be the last patent. That makes a lot of sense. Geo Borehole could work too, except he doesn't have any claims left, so those two lone tiles probably aren't doing. Okay, he has gone ahead and nanoteched out of there, going to a hacker array. Very standard DT move. And there should be lots of room to hack iron, to hack steel. Plenty of things.
The black market is open for business.
Both players also in optimization centers. Neither are completed. Kanto's is completed, and it has the better adjacency.
ET, realizing that those boosted farms are now more trouble than worth, trying to get himself into some water, but I'm imagining that the price on steel is currently holding him up. He's in a little bit of trouble where he wanted to put electronics down, so he put them down where he would normally have his steel, and now he can't put his steel down where he would normally switch out of these farms.
I think largely he's okay with not having steel down. Not a ton of demand for steel late game on IO just because space elevators don't require your base resource. So with nanotech available to him, he can mostly ignore steel, except as a money source.
Might have liked to have seen DT put his chems where his two farms are, and his farms, if he had them, where his chems are, because then he could switch them into water because they're on ice, and he could be making something that's making money right now.
Would be reasonable. Well,
But he can't do that with his current configuration.
like Kanto is going to be our first player into Space Elevators. Space Elevators this game, pretty decent. I would really hope Kanto stops auto-selling oxygen, which is the best launch at the moment, but will not stay that way if you don't have a stockpile of that. And
Kanto does have liquid batteries.
he also only has 2 ice tiles, which is not close to enough. So we'll see how that
If he
goes.
started optimizing oxygen now,
I am also concerned about DT. He's had 2 solar condensers down here for a long time, and this empty claim next to them that's also on ice. I'm not sure what that's about. And yeah.
he might be thinking that the cost in either glass or aluminum isn't worth the 5 units that would be necessary to put down the solar condenser, but it's probably better to have that tile doing something.
I would hope that that's not the thought process, because then I would be very disappointed. Alright, so DT got the 1 hack out of the hack array, that's steel shortage. Transitioning it into a space elevator, gooned, thinking machines. That's where you want it. He's moved the hack array somewhere else now.
Also got Kanto on the defensive stock-wise. So now on the offensive stock-wise.
Let's see, what have our players been optimizing? DT has started off with chems, Kanto's dipped into a few markets, going into electronics a bit more heavily. Colony's still consuming a lot of electronics, so that should be nice for him going forward. Though DT also just producing a lot of electronics right now with this boost.
Our methods continue to improve.
The aggression worked out very nicely for Kanto. DT had to invest all of his money in stock, has very little to actually do anything with this short.
It's true. It's very true, but Kanto's debt is starting to be a real issue.
Yep. Seems like he's choosing to ignore that for the moment, instead pushing for a second space elevator, being very aggressive, placing them adjacent to each other, despite...
Circuit overloads on the map. This is dangerous.
Yes.
Very dangerous behavior of Kanto.
With boosts available, it's definitely a very high reward play, and we'll see how DT responds to that.
Imagine DT is gonna buy some dynamite. Yep. Kinda cheated because he bought the dynamite as I was about to say he's gonna buy, but
Well, so far, Kanto is doing the right thing, not returning the dynamite onto DT's elevator. Because DT does have thinking machines, it is advantageous to Kanto to not give DT more black market items that would hurt you more than him.
that said, it is much easier to attack than defend right now, and that's gonna come down in DT's favor heavily.
Yes. Kanto definitely does still have the option of doing things like blowing up this optimization center, so holding on to it's not really the best move, but it's fine. More Goon Squads down, going to probably look at more boosts, and he's just in a great position at the moment.
I can see the thinking behind holding on to it because he does have a cooldown, once he gets done with the cooldown, he's potentially going to be attacking twice in a row. That is typically how you'd take down a Goon Squad when you have to punch your way through one.
Right. I don't think you want to punch your way through this, though, because that just means more onto you.
The main problem, of course, being the thinking machines, because that means it's only going to do half as much damage as it would normally do, no matter pretty much what you throw at them.
Right. I guess one good reason to hold on to the dynamites is that you know that you're ahead 2 elevators to 1, so that puts a lot of pressure onto DT to respond in kind, put down a second elevator himself, and that one's much less likely to be defended. So once that comes down, that's where your dynamites land.
We're officially at $25,000 for a goon now.
The hacker array is finished. Time to change our passwords.
So it's getting to the point where you can lose because you hit the button to buy goon squads too much, or you can lose because you threw too much black market at your opponent, but at least throwing black market at your opponent.
Oh dear. Okay, so Kanto did do what we mentioned, looking for that second elevator, waiting to dump the dynamite onto that. Unfortunately for him, DT saw that coming, had that defended, and now Kanto might be regretting that a bit. Once
DT just going heavy into steel. Steel looking profitable enough that even as a scavenger with no iron input, I might be thinking about putting down a couple steel mills.
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of the steel price is fake. Once the steel does come down, then you can very
Stopping
easily...
him might be worth the cost of 1 or 2 steel mills.
Yes, except then once DT buys into iron, you have no real response. And you can produce steel.
There's that. I guess there is absolutely that.
Kanto did buy claim, but he's putting that into oxygen, which, as we noted earlier, 2 oxygen was never going to be enough. This is necessary, but not great. Still in a
This is what happens
position.
when 2 players with hacker arrays fight. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the shortage of steel and the surplus of steel, and you can see the price now just not going anywhere.
Yeah, definitely one of the better ways to counter a hacker array when you don't have options to enter the markets yourself.
Yes. You can see it's not moving the market in either direction. It's cheaper to queue up those those surpluses, but it's not ultimately helping you win, and Kanto needs to go from basically D+1 to helping me win.
I am a bit concerned right now for Kanto. I think there's a very real option for him to just sell out of his stock and be in position to finish up the buy very quickly. I think he needs to make that sort of push instead of doing what he did, just paying off debt. The longer this goes, the more problems he'll have without the thinking machines, without all those tools DT has available to him.
Now, yeah, it's starting to look iffy if he sold out, whether or not he'd necessarily make it. He'd be close. He'd probably make it, but...
Black market is open for business.
Right, I think Kanto's put himself in a position where DT is much more real threat than he should be.
So much money.
Being in D-level debt also locks you out of the black market, that not helping at the space elevator stage.
Optimization routines
Right.
successful.
Just all sorts of free opportunities for DT to boost or just keep blowing up this elevator.
Misinformation in progress.
Yeah, now the price on iron is up at $575 a unit. And it's going to be going surplus.
Yeah, it looks like Kanto has mostly just been alternating iron and steel hacks, knowing that they'll be coming at some point, but not knowing which because there are no spies available. So, decent way to play that out. Of course, DT
He has identified uranium, though.
Yes. Can't keep him down for long.
And, yeah, so this is where comfort in hacking comes from, where he can see that Kanto doesn't actually have any uranium claims, no return of claim on the market, so he hasn't had any uranium claims at any point. No mules on the market, so he hasn't muled any uranium at any point, and generally kept an eye on it to know that he hasn't been slowly buying up a stockpile of uranium with any stockpile money he has. So DT now in a position where he can just spend literally every penny he's got on this hack.
Right. And once DT starts buying into Kanto stock, that evens out these percentages a bit more, puts these targets pretty close, and DT might just be able to pull off this comeback.
Let's watch our profits climb.
I'd say that EMP was probably decisive.
Yep, dirt cheap, very effective. Not quite sure what Kanto was doing with his cooldowns. Well, nothing. But if you're going to be paying off that much debt, you need to be protecting yourself or being aggressive. Neither of those things happened, and he just kind of threw away all the money he needed to finish this game.
Probably should have gone for the sellout buy. Would have been risky, but it was his best chance at that moment. But still well played by Kanto and well played by DeathTacticus, our winner.
Yep. Kanto, a few mistakes early, but generally a very solid game plan. Got him to where he needed to. But
Yes.
DT just so experienced, knowing what he needs to do at any moment and pulling it off.
Big part of the problem is DT, as a scientist, gets a bonus to patents. When that adrenaline boost came down onto his patent lab and Kanto put an adrenaline boost on his own patent lab, DT was, of course, already getting an advantage to the speed of his patents researching, so he was researching patents in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, like that first superconductor was what, like 12 seconds actually? Which is just insane.